Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to change out the struts on the front end of a 2012 Nissan Sentra. Now this is just a base model. Let's go ahead and get started. As usual, go ahead and lift it up, get the wheel off, get a jack stand underneath the frame there on whatever side you're going to start on. So go ahead and spray some lube on the bolts that you're going to be removing the nuts on. Now keep in mind that any of the bolt sizes I tell you might be different on yours, so just use whichever one is appropriate. I'm going to start off with removing the sway bar link. I'm going to use a 19 millimeter to get it back behind here, and then on the front I'm going to use a 18 millimeter to take the front one off. It's removed, and just set it off to the side and just pull the sway bar link outward. Then take you a pair of pliers, and over here you'll see the brake line. Just pull the clip that's holding the brake line out. Get your brake line loose. Now these other lines just pull off of their mount. It's right here. Then you'll take 21 millimeter for this nut, and I'm using a 21 for the opposite side also to go ahead and remove this. Now I'm going to use the impact, but you can use the regular ratchet if you don't have access to an impact. Let's go ahead and remove these. You can see that once it's off, if you push backwards towards the vehicle with your rotor, then these bolts on the Sentra will normally just come right out by hand, and then just kind of let that drop down a little bit. Now if you think this is dropping too much, you don't want to stretch it out or let it come back, because you'll separate the CV joint on your axle. So don't let it drop too awfully much. But now you go to the top and let the retaining bolts off inside of the engine compartment up top. Now underneath the hood you'll see the top of the strut right there, and you'll need to remove the little access cover right there, the little plug, in order to access the back bolt. Now some opt to take the cowl off, but I usually just like to stick my fingers in there. I'll get a ratchet with a short socket, it's a 13 millimeter, and then I'll get a magnetic retrieving tool to go back in there and pick up that retaining bolt. Same thing on the passenger side, back over there, same type of process. So go ahead and remove the access cover right there, the screwdriver, pull it out, and then if you need to, you can look down in here with a flashlight and you'll be able to see the bolt on the back side. But you can turn this sideways. Make sure that your socket's on there tight, because if not, you'll end up losing it. But turn it sideways, go up through the hole, and then set it on top of the nut, and you'll be able to loosen it up, just like this. And like I said, it does take a little bit of time to do it. You gotta be a little patient. Once it gets loose, I can normally stick my finger up in there and undo the nut with my finger. Now I can normally stick my finger up in there and get that out, but you can also get a magnetic retriever tool and you'll be able to get the nut out just like that. Now you'll want to go ahead and remove the other ones. This one underneath the cowl underneath there, a lot of times there's not enough room to put the socket up in there, so get you a wrench, and then that way you can get the wrench up in there. Now if you find these tough to get out, then just go underneath where the wheel is, underneath the wheel well, and put some lube from the bottom on the two retaining bolts. Now you can't lube up the one that's underneath the cowl, but you can lube up the other two. Once you remove the last retaining bolt, that strut, you'll probably hear it drop out. Or you'll see it drop down right here, so it's completely loose. Now you're able to come back under here and just remove the strut completely out. Now just set the old strut and the new strut next to each other to make sure everything's the same. All the mount points, everything looks correct on it. So we'll go ahead and start putting it back in. So whenever you start putting the strut back in, you might need to spin the top a little bit to get it realigned with the top bolts. You can see how you can spin the top right there, and then make sure that you put this line on the front side of the strut, because if you put it on the back side or put the strut in here, you'll be taking it back apart right here to get it in. So make sure that's there, and then just lift it up and in the position. It's really not that hard. Once you get it close to it, you can push your assembly back in, and then you can run a bolt in it to help hold it in. Now, usually I get 2 bolts in like that, and then I'll go ahead and run, go to the top and fasten 1 or 2 of those retaining nuts up top. Now, whenever you're placing the retaining bolts back in on the top, you might have to have a friend, if you got one, to lift up on the strut to help get the hole close to it, or just put you a jack underneath the lower arm, and then you still might have to line the top of the strut. But once you get it close to it, you should be able to turn the retaining bolts back in, get them all started, and then start tightening them up. Before you crank them all down, make sure you get all of them in and started, so that you don't chance cross-threading the bolt. Now for your last retaining bolt that's in the access hole back there, I like to stick my finger back there and make sure that the hole's lined up. If not, you can reach under where the fender well is and kind of twist on it, and then you'll get you a magnetic retriever with the bolt just like that. Go back here and stick it in the hole, and once it gets close to it, stick your other finger back there and start working the bolt into its proper position. Now just keep in mind that getting that bolt in there can be pretty tedious, so just take your time. If you drop it, you'll probably have to run the magnetic retriever into there to get it out, or you'll end up having to take your cowl off to remove it. Now for some it might be easier just to take off the cowl, but I like to just put it in like this and screw it down with my finger. So once you finish tightening up your retaining bolts, go ahead and reinstall your access cover plug. Just push it back in. Don't push too hard or else you'll lose it back behind the panel there. And then we'll go ahead and finish up the install from underneath. Go ahead and reattach all your lines. If you look on your brake line, you'll see a little notch right here and a flat spot. It'll fit right between on the new strut on there. Once you get it in there, then you can take your retaining clip and push it back into position. I'll go ahead and tighten up the strut bolts on the bottom. And tighten up your sway bar link up top. Now you finish the install on your strut. So just go to the other side, do the same on the opposite side, and get the wheel back on, torque everything down to specs, and get it back on the road. Anyways, I hope my video helped y'all out today. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for me, like it, share it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Stay tuned for the next video, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone.